Hello everyone and welcome to today's Corporate Governance and Audit Committee on the 24th of November. Our sincere apologies for the delay. We have had some IT issues in getting the meeting live so that you're able to hear us, but we believe we've got those sorted now, so thank you for bearing with us and welcome to the meeting. Remind members that this is live finally and being recorded. So the first item on the agenda is the membership of the committee. I've had apologies from Councillor Smage. I haven't had any others, but I do want to, although he's not, I believe, in the meeting at the moment, welcome Councillor Firth, who has joined the committee as a permanent member replacing Councillor Bolt. So I look forward to welcoming Donald to a meeting when he's available to join us. Second item, does anyone have any interests that they want to declare? No? Thank you very much. I haven't had any issues raised about the minutes, so I assume we're all happy with those. Excellent. So, Commissioner of the Public, this meeting is taking place in public, but item 15 is going to be taken in private at the end of the meeting. We haven't received any notification for deputations or petitions or public questions, so that brings us on to item number 7, which is the half yearly monitoring report on Treasury Management. I think it's been a quiet first half year for Treasury Management, has it not, Rachel?
Hello, thank you, Chair. I'll just go through the main points of the report. It's been an unusual 6 months in terms of cash flows. At the start of the year, we had high investment balances due to the grants we received in March. 12.2 were COVID support grants and 11.7 million of business rates relief received in advance of 2021. Then on the 1st of April, the Council received 113.4 million of business support grants, which resulted in a peak in investments of 144 million. The grants start to be paid out to businesses mid-April and into May. So we had high cash levels for a number of weeks. Cash was invested in line with our treasury management strategy. So low risk, instant access accounts, short-term deposits and money market funds. Excess cash over any counterparty limits was invested in DMO, which is considered extremely safe, as it is an executive agency of HM Treasury. In terms of investments, we aim to keep investments around 30 million, which includes the local authority property fund. However, due to the significant increases in cash in the period, the average was 43.5 million. The council's average investment rate was 0.41%. Return on liquid cash investments was 0.15%, and return on the 10 million investment in the property fund was 3.56%. And that was after deducting charges of 0.65. Regarding borrowing, the Bank of England lowered base rate to 0.1% in March, and there's been no movement since. So short-term borrowing rates remain very low. The council could borrow about 0.3 to 0.4% April and May, and then from July 0.1% or even lower. The council repaid 4.6 million of long-term loans, bringing the total to 381.5 million at the end of September. No new long-term loans were taken out, but there is a borrowing requirement by the year end. And the mid-year liability benchmark is 52 million, which takes into account peaks and troughs in cash flows and working capital movements. The revised CFR for 2021 is 690 million, and the CFR is the council's underlying need to finance capital expenditure with borrowing, which can be a combination of internal and external. Because of the increase in the PWLB rates last October, the PWLB launched a consultation on its future direction, which closed in July. That outcome is still unknown, so the council will continue to borrow short term until that outcome is known. We did receive an update from Arlene Close yesterday, who think their costs could possibly be information soon, possibly even during the government spending review, which is tomorrow. So any long-term loans that we do take out, we will consult with our advisors, Arlene Close. So if there's any questions or comments.
Thank you very much, Rachel. And firstly, before I open up to comments, I want to say thank you to yourself and everyone in the team for what you've been doing. I was obviously tongue-in-cheek at the beginning. It's been really challenging and uncertain period for the entire council, but for yourselves in particular. So thank you very much for everything you've been doing. Members, if you have any comments or questions, please do indicate. You seem to have satisfied the crowd, Rachel.
That's good stuff.
Excellent. Right. Well, if everyone's happy, thank you very much again for everything you've been doing.
Thank you.
Right. That brings us on. Apologies. Right. That brings us on to item number 8, the information governance report, which I believe is being presented by Katie, and I can see that Councillor Firth has just joined us as well. So welcome to the meeting, Councillor Firth. Yeah, Katie. You're on mute, Katie.
Apologies, everybody. I'm having real technical difficulties this morning.
I think we all are. No worries.
My video is completely down and my mouse, I've only just got it working again, so really big apologies.
No, thank you very much. Go ahead.
Right, okie doke. Thank you. I'm just going to keep it short. I just wanted to outline that we have done our annual report, which is looking at 2019-2020, with an outline of the work that we had planned for this current year, but we've obviously not touched on that for this report. So I wanted to offer to enable the committee to better understand the impact of COVID. One of the recommendations that I've made is, would you like me to come back in the new year with a half-yearly report, just so that we can actually discuss what's happened after COVID or through COVID? So that's something that I wanted to offer a progress report.
Yeah, I'd be happy with that. Councillor Taylor's indicated to speak. Is that, do you want to come in now, or is that for after the report, John?
After the report.
Okay, thank you. But yeah,
Okay.
I think that sounds sensible, Katie.
Fabulous. No, that's great. Thank you. So this report that you have in front of you today, we've completely changed the approach of the report, taking the comments that were given at the last year's annual report that we presented. We wanted to review it to make it shorter and actually link it in with the corporate plan. So the work that we've done this year in the report covers the organisational culture change, the legislation compliance, the information sharing and processing work, the publication and transparency and records management, which are the key 5 pillars that have been outlined in the current IG strategy. We've made some really good strides in terms of progress against these things. So there's been a big increase in strategic leadership and management from the IG board, which is fantastic. The service directors are now known as information asset owners in a data world, and they have had training updates to help them understand their management and their responsibilities. They now all have information asset coordinators as well, so that helps them with the management of the responsibilities across services. One of the areas which I know everybody is very interested in is GDPR and the complexities around GDPR, which everybody, that's not just Kirklees, nationally has found difficulties with kind of getting to grips with. And so we've been working with all services to try and help them and improve their understanding as well, which has been really good. One of the big changes that we've made over this year, 1920, has been with the Central Archive. We've increased the amount of boxes that now are in the archive, and I can state that now the council holds all of its paper records in the council's possession. That hasn't been done for years, and so there was a big piece of work to try and pull all the records together, so we now have them all in our own space, and we're now looking to see how we can make those digitally accessible as well, and that's at work for this current financial year. We're working on cybersecurity as well, so the IT service are working incredibly hard to improve cybersecurity elements, so that we've got that in place. But the mandatory GDPR training programme for officers resulted in 100% success rate of training across the organisation. We're now going towards, for this financial year, we're working towards getting GDPR training available for councillors, so that and so how we've done that is we've worked with Leeds City Council to produce a councillor specific training scheme, and we're looking to release that to councillors in December and January, so that councillors can have access to that training as they want to take it. So that's the key pieces of work that we have worked through last year, and it touches on what we've been doing through this year as well. But I'm really conscious of time, so if anybody's got any particular questions, I'll be very happy to take them.
Thank you very much, Katie. It's much appreciated. And just before I bring John in, as you mentioned, Central Archive once said, I visited it with 2 officers, well, more than a year ago, and it was really interesting. I really enjoyed going. So when regulations allow, if any other members of the committee want to have a visit in the future, I'm sure that'll be arranged, because I'd like an excuse to go back. It was really interesting. I was able to look at some maps of mine and Graham's villages from a very long time ago, back when Graham was a lad. So it was very interesting. Right, Councillor Taylor.
I'm sure when Graham was a lad, they didn't have paper. It was probably on slate. No, Katie, thank you very much for that. Really quite a comprehensive report, and I had down that I just wanted to, a bit like Will, comment on the Central Archive and what a fantastic job that is, because I know how important having those records, particularly in the light of some of the difficulties we've faced in children's services over the past years, having that all information in one place and being accessible is critical going forward. So I think that's really good. I was just going to make one comment on page 57/58, where it was talking about the challenges we face. It listed the challenge as significant change that the council was undergoing. I'm not sure these days we can really call that a challenge, because I think that's just the new normal. And I think we should, I've just seen your comment, Graham, when we laugh. I just think we should accept that, going forward, we will continue to see significant change. And when we start to put that in reports as a challenge or a risk or an issue that hopefully will at some point be mitigated and go away, I think we're kidding ourselves. So that's just really a comment, to be honest, Kate. And then the final one, and it may be something you come back to if you're coming back to us with a half-year update, because it's probably this year, to be honest. and Julie may be able to comment a bit more on this than I can, but I'm aware that from within my group there have been some issues raised around confidential emails that have been sent from councillors to shared mailboxes or even directly to officers, then being shared with other people that probably shouldn't have been shared with. So I just think I'd like us to, sort of reflect on that perhaps when we come back. Just is that another aspect of information security that perhaps we haven't nailed down yet? Yeah. And then a final one, just when you mentioned training at the end, my ears pricked up. I just wonder, it would be nice if we were able to make that training available also to our parish and town councillors, as well as Kirklees councillors, because I know they struggle with this probably more so than we do at Kirklees. So I think anything that's available that could be offered on the same basis of take it and use it if you wish to use it, I think would be appreciated by our town and parish councils.
Okay.
But thank you, Katie.
Thank you. I've made notes of those.
Thank you very much. Anyone else got any questions or comments for Katie?
Yeah, me.
Oh, sorry, Kath. Yes,
Yeah,
you've
I
indicated.
did put speak.
Apologies, Councillor Pinnock. Go ahead.
Couple of things, Katie. In another place with another hat on, there's been some work done on local public services, actually, but obviously including local authorities' response to COVID and what the issues that have arisen, immediate issues. And one of them was data sharing. And the feeling was from people who spoke to this committee in another place was that the rules of the Information Commissioner's office were undermining or making it very difficult to share important data between services. And that one of the things that happened during certainly the first few months of COVID was that people made their own decisions in the best interest of the people they were trying to help. And I just wonder whether any of that has surfaced in Kirklees, because certainly it was from the evidence that we had from across lots of different places. That was a big issue. So that's one, and the second one is just a word of praise, because I can't even remember who I asked to write in with some comments or some information to evidence, if you like, to this committee, and it was from Kirklees, which they did, and it's included in the report. So top marks, because it's the only council that's referenced as far as I can remember. About dealing with information sharing. So there is obviously an issue, and I just wonder whether it's one of the things we may want to look at, as you said, next time we have a look at what's happened this year. And the second thing is the growing number of cyber attacks, and how well are we in dealing with those?
Okay, thank you. Firstly, thank you for recognising that we've put that in the report. That's really good. The sharing with organisations during the start of COVID was a big issue that we actually prioritised, because we identified that it was going to be a problem. So what we did was we ensured that all of the boxes that you have to tick effectively to ensure that we've shared lawfully. So we made privacy notices available as soon as possible. We had sharing agreements set up with all of the organisations which we were working with across the district, so that we had it all in place, and then we had that sharing set out so everybody knew what was okay, and we made sure that was very clear. And I had one-to-one conversations with the chief execs of those organisations, so that they signed the sharing agreement, I signed the sharing agreement, and we made it clear to everybody what the expectations were and what the responsibilities were. I think one of the key issues that we started the COVID world with was that the organisations within the communities had never had to deal with such a situation, and so they'd never had to have reference to the ICO or any of that sort of thing. So there was a significant amount of awareness raising that I needed to do, and working with them to try and allay the fears as well, because there was suddenly a responsibility on these individuals, and it was at an individual level in some areas. It wasn't an organisation that had structure and hierarchy. It was an individual that was just finding themselves in an incredibly pressured situation that nobody has ever been in their lifetime. So what we tried to do was work really closely with them to help them realise that the sharing, as long as they're working to a specific kind of routine and available data, is, you know, the data that we give them, they have responsibility for, and they do X, Y, and Z with it. They were clear with that, and that moved through really quite well once we'd kind of allayed those fears. So yeah, it was a significant piece of work to try and make sure that they were engaged and okay and felt okay about the whole situation. So yeah, so that was really good, really important, and something that we needed to try and focus on from a cybersecurity point of view. I've helped with the cybersecurity strategy, and I link in with IT, and I can only just respond to say that our IT service are providing significant backup to the organisation to ensure that we don't get hit by cybersecurity issues. One of the things that comes back to me on a regular basis is a bit of a heads up around the new ways that people are trying to target VPN, and one of the other things that they're trying to do, because everything is done through email now, they're trying to be incredibly clever, putting links in emails that might make people click on the link and then cause a breach because of that. And so what we're trying to do is send out messages, and this is another thing that we're trying to do this year, and councillors will hopefully be included in this. If they I'm going to GBM as soon as I can to try and get that out there, that actually these messages of what do you need to do if an email comes to you with a link in it, that's so easy for somebody to send, and it's so easy for somebody to click to open up the VPN and open up the council's network. So it's a massive awareness raising situation that we're all working on to try and ensure we can tighten that up.
Thank you, Katie. Councillor Pinnock, I believe you want to come back in.
Can I thank you, Katie, very much, especially on that first bit about how you managed to give people confidence that data sharing that they needed to do was, as long as they did it within certain parameters, was going to be okay. Because there is a bit of a I think we overestimate what the Information Commissioner's Office actually wants to happen, because everybody's sort of erred on the side of great caution for fear of being caught out. And I think that it'd be really good, I think, at some point that there's a sharing of that among local authorities across the country about how data sharing was affected during the COVID first few months especially, and how different councils responded to it, because I think with that we may get a better, a more user-friendly approach to data sharing, which at the same time retains all the controls that are necessary. But thanks very much for that, because it's obviously worked well here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any further comments or questions for Katie? No? Right. Well, thank you very much, Katie. You've provided a really comprehensive report that I think gives us all assurance about the work that you've been doing. I am aware that with consent, some partners and West Yorkshire neighbours have been borrowing and stealing the work that you've been doing, which I think is
yes, we've been
a great
sharing
compliment.
with pride, actually. Yes.
Yes. So well done, and thank you very much for your report.
Thank you.
Right. That brings us on to item 9, which is the annual governance statement for the year 2019-20. I believe, well, we've had this report previously. I don't believe it's a draft of it. I don't believe it's changed much since then. Martin, is it yourself that wants to speak on this? I don't believe Simon's in the... Oh, Simon has joined.
Yeah,
sorry.
It's Simon who should talk on this, really. He knows much more about it than I do, so I'll go off and Simon will come on.
Sorry, I didn't see Simon in the meeting. Yes. Apologies, Simon. Over to you.
No, not to worry, Chair. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. This is the annual governance statement for 2019-20 for your approval, and that will hopefully then allow the Chief Exec and Leader to sign off and for the statement to be published with the annual accounts and made available for our colleagues in Grant Thornton. The reason why it appears perhaps rather later in the year than it has done previously is because the statement covers the period up until the accounts themselves are approved, and of course they're on today's agenda later on. Members, as you mentioned, Chair, consider the draft of the AGS at the July meeting, and it's probably fair to say that this version is largely unaltered since then. As whilst there is a separate section and a separate opinion on the coronavirus period, the Chief Executive is minded that it is probably still too soon to be definitive about the impact of that on the Council's key objectives, and to identify what, if indeed there are any significant issues specific to coronavirus related things that apply to the period of the statement. So I think it's likely that these will be picked up effectively in the 2020-21 AGS, if I can say that. So to summarise, both opinions on 1920 and subsequently during the coronavirus period up to date conclude that overall the Council's governance arrangements were fit for purpose, and indeed note that the Council has continued to deliver the key services and provide the support throughout this challenging period that communities expect and need. Nevertheless, as you'll be aware, there are various significant issues that have applied during the period of the statement. So from page 83, I think in the pack, the statement notes the good progress that has been made in tackling more than half of the 17 issues that there were in the 18-19 statement. Arguably, perhaps most notably, taking children's services out of government direction, and indeed, as we've just been hearing, making good progress on information management issues, so that those issues now don't reappear in this year's statement. But as many of the issues are typically complex and often not entirely in the Council's control, action to tackle them is often needed over a period of more than just 1 year. So from pages 84 to 88, the remaining outstanding issues are described together with progress that has been made and what else needs to be done to bring them more into a business as usual situation, and this has been identified. This has been identified through the quarterly monitoring process that took place through ET and indeed CGAC throughout the period. In addition, in this year's annual review process, 5 new areas of concern were identified, and those are described on pages 88 and 89, for which an action plan has been developed, and again, progress on tackling these things will be reported quarterly in the remainder of this year, and that will then go on to inform the compilation process for next year's statement. So I think that's probably all I need to say at the moment. Happy to take any questions or comments from members, Chair.
Thank you very much, Simon. We've got Councillor Taylor. John, what spelling mistakes have you found for us?
No spelling mistakes on this one, Simon. Well, thank you for the report, which is pretty comprehensive. I only have one comment, actually. Under the new issues, and this is a personal thing, really, because I'm involved. It talks about the completing the redesign of the councillor role profile. My understanding is we've completed that, because that's the work that Kathy Scott and I led on, and that's now been shared with all councillors. So it probably just needs updating to reflect. You might want to check back.
Yes,
that's certainly my understanding. So I just wouldn't want us to be finalising the report and issuing it, suggesting there's an action to be taken. That action has already occurred during this year.
Right, I will do as you request, Councillor. I suspect that one or two things may have been overtaken by time, but
and it's just
I'll double check and make any
because it's something I was involved in. I know where we are with it, but otherwise absolutely fine. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you.
Thanks, well.
Thanks, John. Councillor Pinnock.
Yes, thanks very much, Simon. That's a really good report, and it's great to have it so honestly displayed for us all to see where the failings are as well as the successes. Couple of things. One follows really on from what Councillor Taylor has just said, which is, and it involves the corporate plan as well, because the corporate plan talks about, the issue was about, making linkages with our partners a bit better. And actually what it, in my experience, and I think others, failed to do was make better links with councillors. So I think it was at the last council meeting, we had the corporate plan, new updated corporate plan or something. And it was the first some of us had seen of it. So, which didn't really help, I think, in the governance area of it, to not have been able to have an input before the final stage, and I just hope some of that can perhaps be amended, not on this particular plan, that's done, but any future issues like that, big major stuff, there ought to be a opportunity that's given to partners to be given to councillors as well, I think, and ditto with this councillor's role. Councillor's role is many things to many people, and I don't know that a group of councillors, obviously we can't all draw it up, but to have sight of it and discuss it and propose amendments, I think that sort of approach, I think, is in my head to be recommended. So that's the comment on those. I want to just say something about schools, because you've raised the issue about school governance, and I noticed the other day, I think it was an email about, does anybody want to be a school governor, because we're short of school governors. Because I've been a school governor for a number of years, and one thing has happened is that the role and the responsibilities of being a school governor are now much more challenging and demanding than they were 20 years ago, which I think then makes it more difficult to find governors who are able to do the role as now outlined. So that's one thing I'd like to perhaps hear about, what can be done about that. And you talk about school governance arrangements, but presumably those are only for those community schools, not those that are under the aegis of the Regional Schools Commissioner. This rather anonymous person who has some say over some of our schools. And how do we, if we do still have some influence over all schools in the district, then how does that work? Because of some schools that have become academies, their governance has failed, and it's our local children who are going to these schools, and we need to understand what input we can have to that. And finally, something that's really I find really frustrating. Page 89, we are going to set a carbon budget. Well, I can tell you something. 15 years ago, we set a carbon budget. And that's obviously just rolled off the top of the agenda, and we have to set one again. And if we'd kept setting one every year for the last 15 years, we'd be in a much better place. And obviously that was, and I'll acknowledge that it was Councillor Cooper and us working together, and his colleagues working together, who achieved that. But so that is just frustrating. So you don't have to comment on that, Simon. That's me just venting my frustration. But the other two, I would welcome what you have to say.
Thank you, Councillor Pinnock. I hope you were taking notes there, Simon. Before I bring you in, on the councillor role profile issue, Councillor Pinnock, that has been through some cross-party working on it. I know it went through the Democracy Working Group, which myself and John are on, and I believe Councillor Munro is the Liberal Democrat member of that, and it's gone. Yeah, well,
that's why I was asking to speak.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, but it needs to come to us all. Well, if it isn't, we don't own it.
The invitation came out to all councillors. We held a number of workshops with councillors who wished to get involved. So that request was put out there, but I'm going back now probably a year, 18 months maybe.
All right, my apologies.
It did happen. Yeah, it did, absolutely, Kath. You're absolutely right. It would be totally wrong if it hadn't given everybody the opportunity to contribute, but it did go through that process. That was the only reason I wanted to speak, Will.
Excellent. Thanks, John. Simon, do you want to come back in on that? Sorry for the delay.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I've made a note of Councillor Pinnock's useful comments. Just a couple of thoughts. I will double check with Julie's colleagues in the democracy section regarding the status and progress with the councillor review and make any amendment to the document that's needed. On school governance, I think the issue initially emerged through Martin Durnley's reports of internal audit, where a number of school-related governance issues were emerging and have been reported indeed to this committee. I don't know whether Martin has any particular thoughts. I suppose they are, to answer your question directly, they are community schools, and so the wider area of other schools perhaps wasn't directly in sight when that was included. But I don't know whether Martin has any particular thoughts, because I know he's been personally involved with a couple of school-related issues.
Martin.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think that's Simon's absolutely right. The reference was to the sort of activities and behaviours of people in schools, in community schools rather than academies. They tend to be fairly minor in the structure of the sort of key areas of risk. But I think, as Councillor Pinnock's elucidated, that it does affect local children and indeed the governance of local facilities that the council is seen to be responsible for. So ultimately that's the issue. But I wouldn't say they're really high compared to some of the more core governance matters that are discussed elsewhere on this AGS. But that's the background to it.
You'd be happy with that, Councillor Pinnock? Yeah, thank you. Councillor Lee Richards.
Just on the climate change and the reference to the council declaring a climate emergency. Now, that was January 2019, if my memory serves. So we're coming up to the second year. So really, it would be good to know what we have done so far and what's going into this detailed and ambitious action plan for phase 2?
I think that's more of an issue for sort of the relevant scrutiny panel rather than the AGS itself, but I think we can reflect that back, can't we, Simon?
Absolutely, Chair.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lee Richards.
Thank you, Chair.
Does anybody have any further questions or comments? No. Right, well, thank you very much, Simon, for all the work that you've been doing. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Chair.
And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
That brings us on to item number 10, which is our external audits. I'll pass over to our partners from Grant Thornton.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning, everyone. I think Stephen is on the call. I'm not sure if Aaron is also on the call, but Stephen and Aaron are the key members of our audit team, and we're presenting to you today our audit findings report. I will introduce the sort of the context of it and chip in with some observations as we go, but Stephen will take you through the main points, the documents being discussed and agreed with officers. I think that's important. The other important point to really bring to members' attention is it's a strong report of a very well performing finance team, good set of accounts, strong financial position in these very difficult circumstances, and the value for money arrangements are not giving us any difficulties. The report does, however, raise points. It's been a detailed and I hope you will agree when we get to the end, thorough audit. Points around valuations and adjustments we can talk about in terms of giving you the context there, but also it's been a successful audit in terms of the joint work in very challenging remote circumstances. And we talked to the committee before about the fact that we have to do additional work, additional procedures because we are working remotely. There are additional challenges from an audit risk perspective, and of course then there's all the additional risks relating to COVID that we've been considering as we've been going. So the audit has taken us longer. We are at coming towards the end of November now, which was an extension from the period we would normally expect to do the work in. Although it's been an improvement on our previous year's delivery. But it has taken us longer than it would have otherwise done if all things had been equal. So we can talk about any fee implications as we get to the end of the document as well. Those are reported for your information, and how those are then progressed with our contracting body, Public Sector Audit Appointments Limited. So that's the context. Stephen, perhaps if you could take us through some of the details.
Okay, yes, thanks, John. So yes, this audit findings report, it's been a live document for a few weeks now, really, since it was first circulated, and things have certainly moved on at quite a pace. They always do in audits towards the end of them. So what I'll do is I'll talk you through what's changed and what the key messages are for members. But as John said, the headline message is on page 3 of the report and page 99 of the pack, which sets out we're proposing an unqualified audit opinion and an unqualified BFM conclusion, which is the good news that you want, yeah? And that the audit is largely complete, other than just a few isolated queries and testing of non-material balances that we're following up on, and we should complete that in the next few days. There are 2 areas in the report which could potentially take a little bit longer, as we're dependent upon third parties, and these concern the pension fund liability and the group consolidation work, and particularly around the KSDL Stadium. So I'll come on to that when I go into the body of the report. I should also point out that we go through very rigorous internal quality assurance processes as well. So the audit work is subject to a detailed review, not just by John, and we've got an independent partner as well, second independent partner looking at the audit file, and by my colleagues in the quality support team. And it's to make sure that the audit meets the expectations of the Financial Reporting Council. And because the Kirklees audit file, it's one of a relatively small cohort that meets or triggers the FRC inspection regime. It's due to the size of the council and the fact that you've got some listed debt on your balance sheet as well. So we'll be going through those processes this week as well. I should, just to echo what John said, I should point out that James and Rachel and the finance team, they did provide the draft accounts by the government deadline, and they gave us plenty of supporting working papers, which was great. We've had regular catch-up meetings every week with the finance team, and more regularly than that with individuals. And we've had full cooperation from the throughout the whole audit. We recognise it's been a long audit due to the COVID-19 and remote working and everything else. So if I just go on to the body of the report itself, page 5 of the report, which is page 101 in the pack, that just sets out that we didn't change our materiality that we brought to you in the plan. There was no reason to increase or decrease our materiality that we worked to, yeah. Page 6 onwards, that's where we start talking about our responses to the significant risks that we brought to you in the audit plan at a previous committee. So I won't go through all of these. I'll pick up the most important ones. Page 7 of the report talks about the management override of controls, and I can just confirm that we have now finished that testing. So the writing in red at the bottom of there will be deleted. We did exhaustive testing of your journals that had been posted, and we didn't find any evidence of management override of controls at all. So that is complete. Page 8, this is where we start talking about the significant risk regarding land and buildings valuation. And this is where quite a lot of audit time is spent and it's due to the high values involved, but it's also due to the level of estimation and judgment that goes into arriving at that very large number on the balance sheet. And more details at page 11 as well. But I can confirm to members that we've tested your valuation assumptions, and we've appointed our own expert to review the work of both of your external valuers. Spent much time discussing, challenging it with your internal valuer and the capital accountants, and we've looked at the investment properties and council dwellings as well. There's 2 points in red in there on that page, and it's where we're talking about an unadjusted error over the valuation of care homes, which was overstated in the accounts, and that arose due to some confusion over the number of bedrooms that those care homes had, but it's not a material issue, and we understand why management wouldn't want to adjust for that. Page 9 of the report, that talks about the significant risk regarding the net pension fund liability, and again it's an area, a large figure, £888 million in the group balance sheet, and there's a good deal of estimation and judgment involved in arriving at that figure. So it's another area where we spend quite a lot of our audit time. But we have completed almost all of that testing. We've tested the assumptions, we've tested the data. We haven't got any significant matters to report. But I do need to bring to your attention that we do place some reliance upon West Yorkshire Pension Fund's external auditor. And they've notified us that they haven't finished their audit yet, but they are investigating some issues which need resolving. So we're hoping that will be resolved in the next few days. But we do need them to finish their audit and give us their full assurance before we can give you the assurance that your figures are correct. We're also following up on a little bit of work regarding Kirklees Neighbourhood Housing's, the subsidiaries pension fund liability, which I'll come on to in a moment. Page 10 of the report, this talks about a control deficiency which we needed to bring to your attention. The committee will already be aware of it from internal audit reports, and we've discussed this with internal audit at some length, but it concerns supplier payments. We didn't find any evidence of fraud that would impact upon our audit, but we've just really reaffirming the recommendations that have been made before, that you do need to have controls operating over changes to supplier payment details. You need to be monitoring that. That page also talks about an issue regarding dedicated school grant, DSG overspends. This is somewhere where we take a slightly different view to how the overspends are reported through your reserves. So it's a classification issue really, which we show on page 35, but we are, I suppose we disagree with the way that SIPFA allows you to actually report the reserves. So it's a misclassification issue, and it looks like it's going to get sorted in 2020-21, but you'll see that as part of the disclosure points that we mentioned in the report. Page 12 is
and if I
important
can just
page.
I said I'd chip in, use my prerogative to chip in on that point. So whilst the accounting is being sort of kicked around nationally, and we've got to a position where we're comfortable in, I think what this tells you about the underlying financial pressures, I think, is still important not to lose sight of. All councils will have a number of years now with the new accounting arrangements coming in, so that the accounting itself is not a barrier to resolution. But we will continue to look at this, not so much from an accounting perspective in future, but from a financial pressure and financial resilience resolution perspective, because it's starting to become an increasingly bigger figure at a number of authorities, that even in some cases is starting to threaten the authorities' overall finances. So important for members to view it in that context.
Yeah, thanks John. So page 12, this is an important page really, because it talks about the group consolidation work. And firstly, we're raising the point about consolidating Kirklees Stadium Development Limited. So the stadium itself needed to be revalued, so it was on a consistent basis with the council's accounts, so you could consolidate the joint venture. And KSDL, they prepare their accounts on a different basis to you. They use UK GAAP, you're using IFRS, International Financial Reporting Standards. When that valuation was carried out, and we saw the valuation report last week, there was a significant upward revaluation in that stadium, and that led to an adjustment, which you'll see in the report, to the group balance sheet and the group income and expenditure statement. Now, given the significance of that valuation, we were talking about around about the £50 million mark, we've had to get our valuation experts just to look at those assumptions that went into the valuation that you've commissioned, and we're hoping to hear back on that in the next few days. If our valuation expert challenges some of those assumptions, then clearly we'd need to rethink, and it could take a few more days to resolve. But that's one of the areas that's a potential risk to reaching the deadline at the 30th of November. But hopefully will resolve itself. The second point on that page, that concerns the KNH subsidiaries pension liability that I mentioned earlier on, and we were planning on speaking to KNH's external auditor to get some assurance on the work that they'd done over the pension liability. Having done that, we felt that we needed to get a little bit more assurance ourselves, so we're carrying out a little bit more work this week over the subsidiaries pension liability, and that's £60 million is their liability, so it's a material figure. We're not expecting any issues to come out of that, but I think it's right to bring it to your attention. Keeping on going, pages 16 and 17, these talk about the going concern, and what we're looking at here is making sure that you've got arrangements and you're okay to pay your debts and settle any liabilities which fall due in the next 12 months. So we've spent a lot of time looking at cash flow forecasts, treasury management reports, borrowing requirements, and Rachel's 6-monthly treasury management report earlier on is the sort of thing that we place a bit of assurance on. We didn't raise any concerns, and we agreed with the going concern basis for your accounts, but we did make a recommendation that it's good practice for the finance team to bring to this committee a paper each year setting out why they think that you are a going concern, if you like, summarising the cash flow position and the treasury management. It's something that other councils do, and it seemed to be good practice, and that's a recommendation that Eamon and the team have accepted. So moving on to the value for money conclusion, again, we said it's an unqualified value for money conclusion, which is good news. Members might recall that we brought the scope of the VFM work to this committee within the audit plan, and we followed on one of the significant areas from the National Audit Office's framework to look at your financial sustainability. So we spent quite a lot of time looking at how you actually achieved your budget for 2019-20, how you set the 19-20-21 budget, and how you've created the medium-term financial plan, which is a considerable achievement, really, given the what was happening at the time with the COVID-19 situation, the grants coming in, and the extra expenditure you're expecting to happen. So we didn't raise any concerns within there. So it's an unqualified value for money conclusion. Pages 24 to 26, we start talking about independence and our compliance with ethical standards. So we can confirm that we do comply with the ethical standards, and we do meet the independence requirements. We're independent from the council, and that also goes on to talk about the fees that John touched on earlier on. Within the appendices at the back of the report, there's a series of recommendations and audit adjustments. I wasn't going to go through them in much detail, but happy to talk through any of the areas that members are particularly interested in. But the as John said, the recommendations and the full report have been agreed with Eamon and the finance team last week. Right at the end of the report, you'll see our draft audit opinion, which is just going through final clearance with the firm at the moment. So that's almost there. So I just wanted to thank again the finance team. They did prepare a really good set of draft accounts, and they've cooperated with us during the audit. They've all got a day job to do, a very busy day job, and they don't really. It's not helpful to have auditors, I don't suppose, going asking them questions for this prolonged period. But we've had full cooperation and support, and I'd like that. Just want to make that clear, really. So that's all I wanted to say. But happy to take any questions that you've got on the detail of the report.
Thank you very much to both of you for that. It's a really comprehensive verbal report and a really comprehensive report we've got in the pack as well. So thank you very much for both of those. And for all of the work that you've been doing, as you say, in challenging circumstances, particularly for doing an audit. So we do appreciate that. Obviously, it's pleasing, a very pleasing VFM conclusion, and reassuring that the controlled efficiency issue that you've raised is something that was already identified by IA and reported to us. So it's good to not get any surprises. So thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions or comments for our external auditors? Oh, right. Thank you very much to everyone in your team for the work that you've been doing.
Sorry, Chair, if I can finish just before you thank us, we can talk about money. I'll get it in just before you thank us. The fee variations, as we've talked, I think the committee is familiar with, are neither in our gift or the council's. Actually, they are legally determined by Public Sector Audit Appointments Limited. So the process we follow is to report to yourselves what will be our proposal for a fee variation, which we will do and confirm. Perhaps, Stephen, is that incorporated in the document now, or will we need to come back to the members with a number?
Sorry, I was on mute. The fee is mentioned, but any further fee variation, I think, would need to come back to the members on that. Yeah, as discussed with Eamon previously.
Yeah. So we will give you at the next meeting the fee which you note. It's for officers to determine then whether they agree in principle or not with how we've approached it, and then that goes to PSAA, who make a legal determination. But I just wanted to cite you on that. It's clearly a strange year that we're in. This is a nationally consistent conversation that's been going on across all firms, and PSAA will challenge us on the work that we've done to make sure it's proportionate and provides value for the council as well within the conditions of our contract with them.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for that explanation, and again, thanks for everything that you've done. We really appreciate it. Right, we'll move on then to the approval of the accounts 1920. Is that yourself, James?
Hi, Chair. Yes, it's me. Yeah, probably just to start by saying a big thank you to me for the wider team, Rachel in particular. She had a lot on her plate over the past 6 months, and it's been a tremendous amount of work gone on behind the scenes, and also probably to reflect that the audit's probably functioned as good as it could do in this time. So it's felt like a far easier process than last times. But maybe a slight reflection, it's like London buses, isn't it? You go for a while without one, and then two drop almost within 6 months. But yeah, this report in essence brings together the last couple of reports as well. So in a formal sense, we just reflect the revised deadline was 31st of August for draft accounts, and we signed them and got them on the website for 31st of July, which again a tremendous effort from Rachel and the team. The audit deadline is 30th of November. As you've heard from Stephen and John, we're keeping our fingers crossed that with a fair wind we meet that deadline. Because of the timing of the reporting papers, what we had to say in the recommendation is to ask for a delegated authority that that you, Chair, and Eamon will sign the letter of rep and the accounts when Audit are happy that they can sign their opinion. So a signed opinion will drop into the accounts along with sort of the formal signing from yourselves. Yeah, also just to reflect the 6-week public inspection period passed without any objections, so that was good. And yeah, probably the VFM conclusion again is in there as an unqualified opinion, which is really good news from previous years, obviously. Yes, I think that's about it from me. Any questions, really?
Councillor Taylor.
Thanks, Will. Firstly, a big thank you, James, to you and the whole team. I mean, what you guys have achieved this year is really impressive, given that everything else that's been going on. And we haven't really talked here about all of. Well, we briefly touched on the money that's been coming from the government that then you guys have been handing out to various businesses, etc., in terms of the grant schemes, and you've had to cope with all of that. And I mean, internal audit and everybody that's involved as well. And I think you deserve our gratitude and thanks for that. So it's really pleasing that we've got to this stage. My only comments on the accounts actually are I'm performing my role as a proofreader. I'm disappointed if I didn't find something. In the introduction section, introduction to Kirklees, I mean, it's just a timing issue, but it talks about Labour being the controlling party. And of course,
well spotted.
I don't want to expose internal disputes, but we probably just need to update that to reflect the current position. And then also on page 140, it replicates the governance statement. And my point I made to Simon about my understanding is the council role profile has been completed and has been distributed. Therefore, we just probably need to update that comment in there as and when Simon updates whatever he does update in the other one. And that's it really. I mean, it's just really me getting in my opportunity to proofread, but also a big thank you to you and the team for what has been achieved, because the ask has been huge this year. Thank you.
Thank you. It's much appreciated, and Rachel does take a huge amount of credit for that. I'm involved at the periphery, but Rachel and her team have she manages treasury as well as the final accounts process and the statement of accounts. So yeah, you're echoing my thanks. And yes, we'll pick up those other bits. We have like a little period now to the 30th where Audit are carrying on working, and whenever we're finding these little typos, etc., we are updating. So I'll reflect those couple in there, and likewise when Simon finalises his document, we aim to sort of drop that one in as well. Hopefully by the 30th, so we can get them online and meet the deadline, which should be the really pleasing thing if we can get to that point.
Thanks, James. And John, you've given us a lot of corrections over the last couple of years, but I bet that one was your favourite, wasn't it? I bet you loved that. Before I bring Councillor Pinnock in, I can see Eamon's got his hand up. Was that to respond to something that John's just said, Eamon? If so, please do come in.
No, it's okay. I'll wait. I'll let Councillor Pinnock go first.
Okay, Councillor Pinnock.
Oh, thanks very much. Yeah, I mean, I think it's amazing that you've managed to do it actually within the extended timescale. So congratulations to everybody who's been involved with doing that. And I mean, I just think we should recommend the reading of this statement of accounts to every councillor. I know they won't like it, but there's some great information in there that helps us understand both our district in its own entity, but also in relation to others. So, page 6, page 157, where spending power per capita, we are now the lowest of the West Yorkshire councils, and we didn't used to be the lowest. and the difference between us and Bradford has increased in my recollection of where it was. It used to be 40 quid, and now it's now 55. We do need to sort of try and get to understand that, and use Councillor Taylor's direct line into the Conservatives to just point out there's no rhyme or reason why Kirklees should be below Wakefield and Calderdale in its funding stream, and it does make a big difference, and it's why we are constantly under pressure. And if you work out what £55 per capita would mean to our finances, even £20 per capita for our finances to get us alongside, well, not even that would get us alongside, 30 quid would get us alongside Calderdale. There's no reason why we should be so much lower, and something needs to be done. So what we need is the government to finally come forward with its fair funding, fair perhaps funding formula for councils, and because we're constantly under financial pressure because of the lack of spending power that we have. My little rant is over. Thank you very much for your the statement of accounts, and I think we should recommend it, Will, for definite reading, for a recommended reading for all councillors, even if they just read the opening bit, which gives the introduction, which gives some basic stats about the council.
Thank you very much, Kath. It's everything you said, I think, was a point well made, and I trust John will reflect on that. Does anyone else have any other?
I'm going to have to go now. I've just looked at the time, so I will have to go now to join the next meeting. So my apologies.
No, completely understand. Thank you very much, and have a good rest of your day, Councillor Pinnock.
Thank you.
Eamon.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to second Councillor Pinnock's recommendation that every member should read the financial statement. I think coincidentally, one of the recommendations of the Redmond review is to put, shall we say, a more simplified financial statement at the front of the accounts to help the casual reader. It might mean a bit more work for us, but it'd be interesting to see what comes out of that. I just wanted really just to concur with what other colleagues are saying about the incredible work that James, Rachel and the finance team have done, not just over the last 6 months, but consistently year in, year out, in incredibly difficult circumstances. It's quite a small team and it's a specialist team. So the resilience of that team has been pushed to its absolute limits. But the fact that they've come out the other side of it and have delivered what they've delivered. And thanks as well to Grant Thornton colleagues who've worked incredibly hard, and appreciate the pressures they're under in terms of the requirements of Financial Reporting Council as well. Again, something that the Redmond Review referred to as well. So there are a number of probably points going forward about making sure that the corporate finance team remains resilient going forward, because the demands on the team through the Financial Reporting Council aren't going to go away. So we need to make sure that we've got the right skills at the right capacity to support James, Rachel and colleagues going forward as well, and to give yourselves that collective reassurance that we've got sufficient resources to be able to cope with whatever's thrown at us, because it's true to say that the statutory deadlines going forward are going to be longer, shall we say, whether it's the end of September or a different month end, because at one time they were concertinaed into sort of end of July, and that's not going to happen. And I think the demands of the Financial Reporting Council in terms of check and challenge and accounting requirements aren't going to get any simpler anytime soon. So we have to acknowledge that going forward. So we're certainly not resting on our laurels. But in the meantime, just say what a fantastic job James and Rachel have done, really. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Eamon. And of course, I'll echo that as well. Thank you very much for everything that you've done, James and Rachel in particular, but everyone in your team. It's been a really difficult year, but as everyone said, you've done an exceptional job. I gather from everyone's comments that we're happy with the report. Are we also happy to confirm that we're happy to delegate approval of the accounts for me and Eamon to sign them off once we've got the final version complete and ready to go? Excellent. Right. Thank you very much, everyone. The next item on the agenda is the appointment of a trustee to the Joshua Wood charity. Martin, do you need to say anything on this?
Not specifically, Chair. Thank you. Really, I think last time you'll remember that we had a discussion about the future of the Joshua Wood charity, and this is the creation of the new charity, which has been approved by the Charity Commission, and then hence we need to make a single nominee. The suggestion is that the single nominee should be a councillor who represents the Heckman White ward, and hence, following a discussion with the ward members, Councillor Hall has been put forward as the said person, subject to the approval of this committee under the council process to progress that forward.
Excellent. Right, I trust there's no issues with that. We're all happy to accept the report. Excellent. Thank you very much. And that brings us back to you, Martin, for your quarterly internal audit report.
Yes, so the quarterly internal audit report, obviously there's the public report, and then we'll need to go into private session, so we'll need Lee to switch the machine off at some point. So I will just do the cover report first, Chair, before we do any detailed matters. So the cover report sets out progress in relation to the internal audit plan for 2021. As we've discussed at previous meetings, the coronavirus doesn't help, and as our colleagues from Grant Thornton have pointed out, sort of coronavirus-related working tends to be less efficient in an audit style. So it's only fair to be clear to you that we've not made as much progress as I would have liked on the audit plan. But what we have managed to achieve is to identify those areas which really are necessary to help you to gain assurance that the broad processes and business arrangements of the council are sound, and those are listed in Appendix A to this report. It's called Appendix A, just better check it's not called Appendix 1. It's Appendix 1, sorry, it's on page 310 for those who've got paper documents. So those are the areas of assurance that I would recommend that you look to and endorse, if you will, please. And then come January, we will produce a bit more information about what progress we've made in the next 2 months against that, and discuss with you what arrangements we might need to make to be sure that we at least achieve that level of coverage to give you that level of assurance. We have been using staff, and we have got some of our staff still working on grant-related projects. Obviously, the government has launched a further business rate style or business support grant scheme based around property costs, and some of my team, alongside some of Eamon's team, are assisting with this work. It's not absolutely pure assurance. That having been said, these are big sums of money being handed out by the council without a normal style of control arrangement, so it's not unjustified that internal audit resource are put into that type of work in the current circumstances. It's also true to say that internal audit's ability to do some of our routine work is constrained. For example, one of my colleagues has been attempting to do a school audit with the cooperation of the staff at the school. Obviously, we couldn't visit the site, so we have been trying to do it remotely. And whilst we can achieve our objectives, it is extremely time consuming, both for us and for the school staff concerned. So, if we continue with this type of arrangement of working in the longer term, we do have to recognise that these type of things will massively slow up the amount of work we can achieve. Internal audit work will be more disruptive, and we'll need more resource if you want the level of assurance you were getting prior to March this year, or prior to the end of this year. So it's a debate that we will have to have about how much assurance you want, reflecting on how the council is working in the short and medium term. I'm not saying there's a right or a wrong arrangement. What I'm just saying is that, you know, the previous arrangement worked really well and was very efficient in the style of the operation of the council at that time. We'll be able to go back to schools, I'm sure, at some point. Those will be easy to audit. Some of the other areas of activity, less so. That's probably all I need to say for now, Chair. Other than two other parts. One is that there is a report carried out by KPMG in relation to council grant schemes. More detail of which is in the private session. Their conclusions were that actually the council had a reasonable set of good processes in place, but there were one or two areas where there were opportunities for minor improvements, particularly in relation to recording of decisions. Finally, Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act is reported in each quarterly report. There weren't any in the quarter that has just passed, and the Regulatory Powers Inspector carried out a virtual inspection, and he identified no concerns. So that's probably the point to finish, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Martin. Unless anyone has any questions that are really keen to do in public, I'd suggest we now move to private session and discuss that more in depth there. So thank you very much, Martin, for that. I'd like to thank everyone, if anyone is watching, indeed, for joining us. Apologies again for the delay in getting started. And we'll now close the public part of the meeting to move into private session. So thank you very much.